What is up again, guys? Thank you guys for tuning in, and we are going to build this Metal Earth P-40. This is the new one that they just came out with, and I was really pleased with this. Actually, I did not know that they made such cool ones now, and I just really dig the ones with color. So I picked it up at Hobby Lobby, and I was like, oh, well, I'll try it out and see how it goes. So the instructions are very easy to understand. I did not have a problem whatsoever on figuring out what to do with this model according to the instructions. And the sheets as well, it's very easy to understand what goes where and what is what. You know, all the parts are very simply identified, especially because of the color. If you went with a non-colored metal, I think it would be different. But you can see the little tabs where they actually give you tabs to stick your knife in, so it cuts nice and good. And those are my old pair of clippers. We can use any pair of clippers. The metal was so thin there that it's not going to ruin your clippers. So like I said, I've never built one of these things, so I went ahead and just did the frame first, just to get my head around what was going on with this thing. And it was so simple. Like, most of these parts you can just bend with your hand anyways. For the little tabs that stick together, you got to use some tweezers, but you know, all of these parts are really easy to bend and really simple to put together. It's like you just bend it a certain way, make sure that all the corners are lined up, and then you're good to go. So here comes the tricky part. These little cushion areas, the seat cushions and small parts are very tricky. But if you have a good set of tweezers, if you have a good holding tweezers and different kind of mini tools like that, it goes together just fine. It took me a second to figure it out and 2 seconds to bend the metal actually into that cushion fold. And then you can see here the cockpit just folds up. So these are the aileron tabs, and actually the ailerons are actually able to move. You can move them so that the airplane's tilting left or right, you know, and make it scale. But you just fold those over, and then you have the full top part of the wing. So here's the tricky part. When there's more than one tab to connect the pieces together, it's difficult. If you don't bend the tabs correctly, if you don't bend them like a really good 90, they can be offset. So you want to make sure you get those tabs very well set in a 90-degree angle, and just kind of finagle your way into the piece. Like, it's difficult and it is tricky, but it's definitely doable. And I think I made it harder than it was really, because this was a really fun build, and I definitely had trouble when there was multiple tabs connecting at the same time. So yeah, so you definitely want a good 90-degree bend on those. This is the seat and the control stick. Again, I thought I'd have to use like 5 different tweezers to get these things to bend right, and it would be difficult, and I'd have to use a guide to bend it. That's not true. Everything is guided to bend just the way it's supposed to. I literally could have, if I had small enough fingers, I could have done this whole model with just my fingers itself. So using tweezers helped a lot, but really if you were, you know, a kid or whatever, you know, you could do this without even using tweezers. It just helps a little bit. This is a part where you don't do this. You can guide it a little bit to bend, like, you know, oval, to bend it into an oval type shape, but I wouldn't recommend doing it too much, because I did it too much. The thing totally locked up, and the nose and everything didn't line up right. So I would say just use the guide bends on the actual airplane, because this whole thing has guided bends everywhere, and you just use those bends and bend it that way. Don't try anything too fancy, because it's not going to work out. These inside pieces are really, really tricky to get into. I had to bend the tabs a certain way to fit them in first, and then get that last little tab that I'm struggling with in there at the end. That was the easiest way I found to do it. This was probably the trickiest part of the whole model itself. I struggled with this a lot, probably for like an hour, getting those two things in there. So Just keep working at it and finagling it, and you'll eventually get it in there. Don't get frustrated and quit something like this. This is a really cool interactive process that I've never done before, and I think I learned a lot of skills from doing this. So there's the finished product there. As you can see, they went in fine. Just, I think it was because I bent the fuselage into an oval that it made it difficult. And here you can just take this, bend the canopy into around your X-Acto knife or whatever, and make sure that the ends, they just stay straight. So this is another tricky area. I would recommend not doing this step first until you're ready to put the airplane onto the wings, the fuselage onto the wings. So just save this step for later. They're just gonna fall off anyways. I couldn't bend them either way to get them to stick. But the front nose part was very simple, and the exhaust stacks too were really simple. Like it was easy. That wasn't a problem at all. I basically found the more problematic areas. With the tail, it was a little bit tricky because, I mean, the tabs fit in there great. Everything really did fit together well. Like it just went right where it's supposed to go. It's just, I couldn't figure out how to bend things properly so that it stuck very good. So that was user error, was not the company's error whatsoever. But these tail sections actually went together pretty cool. They fit in there just snug enough where when you bend the metal either way, up or down, on the inside of the tail portion there, right out the pack, it can literally go, it literally just locks in place. If you bend one tab or two tabs, it doesn't even matter. You bend one tab over and it'll lock into place if you bend that tail down a little bit. And it doesn't look like it's locked into place because if you do lift up on the tail, it's very loose. But if you push down on it, it holds itself up. It's very cool. It's very unique, and I was really impressed with how these things went in because I thought they'd just be flopping around everywhere, like, you know, being annoying and not being a good display because the tail would always just lock down. What actually ended up happening is they actually turn into a V-tail on me. They actually bend up. So that's kind of funny. With my model, they're like bending up, and it's kind of like a V-tail. So obviously I still have some learning to do with these things, but yeah, it's cool how everything really does stick together good. Now, if you put this tail in, it actually fits tight enough to where you do not have to bend the tabs. And actually, after finagling with it for 5 seconds, I said, not gonna bend the tabs. I tried to, didn't work out. I just put it in, left it there. It looks good enough. It sticks in good enough, and that's good enough for me. So now this took the longest. This really did take a lot of messing around with to get this thing in there. What I would suggest doing is you do one side at a time. There's, I think, 6 tabs that you have to fit in, and this is definitely the trickiest part, but you want to get this part right. So there's 6 tabs to fit in. There's 3 on each side, and then there's 2 tabs that fit in to the center of the fuselage, and they go in. You might forget about them. So there's 2 extra tabs that you gotta make sure that they go in the right spots. And this is especially tricky because those things are not set. None of the tabs that are going into the actual wing are like definitely set as a mounting place. You have to move them in order to get them in there. This is, I thought it would be harder than it was, but it wasn't. This is kind of the landing gear area, and you just bend it around a paintbrush, bend that little thing down, and then put the fatter end of the toothbrush or paintbrush in there and just widen that out to the circle. Widen it out to the width of the circle. And these are pretty cool. I thought that this went together very well. This was the easiest part of the model, honestly. So you bend those tabs on the bottom side of the wing there, and you got some landing gear things. The detail in this model is incredible too. You have all the panel lines and the paint job's really, really good. It looks really cool when it's all together. So as you can see, nothing is bent. I tried bending the wings into this shape, and you're not supposed to. Nothing is bent. You put these little triangle pieces in there and the wings, and that is the front of your wings. So yeah, the mouth went together fine. I would definitely suggest bending some tabs out, sticking those tabs in, and then finagling the other tabs in the other side. But this didn't take too long, so it wasn't that big of a deal. And we're getting close to a P-40 here. Now, the nose cone, I did not even use any tools or anything to bend it over into its shape. Like I said before, it uses the guide bends from the metal. It's insane. I did not know I could make a nose cone shape just with my hands. It really is cool. And then you put that little metal ring around it and clamp it together. And this really wasn't that hard either. The props weren't too hard either. You bend them in, put them in both tab spots, and then you clamp them down just like I'm doing here. And they do bend forward a little bit, and they're floppy in there a little bit, but you get what you get sometimes, you know? You get what you get. If you don't put a lot of time into it, then, you know, it's not going to come out looking like a 5-star 3D model. But for what it is, this model came out really cool, and I'm really happy with it. So thanks for watching, and I got some photo shoots here for you. Make sure to subscribe also, guys. I'm still doing lots of giveaways and stuff, so make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, comment what you thought of this model. This is just kind of my one random series that I like doing, and just thank you guys so much for subscribing. I'm almost to 1,000, so get me there, guys, and thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video.